Could Victor Oladipo be reuniting with the Orlando Magic? Major news coming out that he is not retiring, still looking for a place to play, still looking to continue his NBA basketball career, and the Orlando Magic are one of the betting favorites to land his services. Now, obviously, pushing that further back, not this season, we're in the middle of a playoff push, but I definitely think it's something worth talking about. And it's time also to look at some of the other role players on this team and assess who is staying and who is leaving this season. But first, guys, welcome to Magic Digest. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. This is your one-stop shop for Orlando Magic basketball content here on YouTube. And if you're watching these videos regularly and you're not subscribed, leave the 75% of you that are in that group and join the 25% of you that are subscribed and a part of the Orlando Magic basketball community here on YouTube. Certainly, subscribing helps the channel the most, so why not do that if you guys come on in here to get your daily dose of Orlando Magic basketball news. Okay, so just recently coming out a couple days ago, Victor Oladipo said, look, I'm not done yet, okay? I'm not leaving. I'm still trying. Obviously, he dealt with a major injury the last time we saw him out on the basketball court in the NBA, but here's his quote. He's not retiring, and he still has a lot left in the tank, he says. I'm not retiring. It's just not what I'm doing right now. I got a ton left in the tank. I'm training, rehabbing every day. Obviously, this is something that we're rooting for, no matter how much of a long shot it may be. And despite maybe his ability to actually be able to contribute to winning basketball, where I think we're all rooting for him. He's a part of the Magic family. Even though you see him here in this tweet in a Heat jersey, the guy's a part of the Magic family, the Magic faithful. I grew up rooting for Victor Oladipo. I obviously started watching basketball right around that time. When we drafted him back in 2013, he was a cornerstone to the franchise, and unfortunately it didn't really work out. He was a part of the draft day trade. We packaged him and Sabonis and got Serge Ibaka, which, oh my god, feels like the worst trade ever, but that was the deal that we made back in 2016, I believe. So he obviously bounced around a couple more times after ending up on the Pacers and the Rockets, and then as you can see with the Heat. So I digress on his career. Could this be something that the Magic potentially look into? Right now, at the time of recording this video, the Magic they're coming off the loss against the Grizzlies, and they certainly need some help in areas on their bench. Now, they brought back Gary Harris. They brought in Corey Joseph. Some of the guys at the very end of the bench maybe could get pushed over if you're trying to bring in a guy like Victor Oladipo, a spark plug who may potentially be healthy. I don't think that you're certainly throwing away any of the young guys such as De Silva, Jet Howard, or Anthony Black, and you're not bringing in Victor Oladipo instead of those guys or to play instead of those guys. But it's certainly worth noting that he could potentially be a spark plug when he is healthy because he's very valuable. Now, his time during the Heat wasn't exactly the best. He had multiple injuries during his time with them. He had a season-ending surgery in May 2021 to repair his right quad tendon, and then he made a return in March 2022 and then continued to struggle with a handful of other injuries. And then in April 2023 during a playoff game against the Bucks, he obviously suffered a torn patellar tendon in his left knee, and not exactly something that he is he hasn't really been the same. Okay, he knew that his knee was messed up with the Pacers, and that's why he didn't get the biggest contract when he was with them. But he's been dealing with injuries. Could he slot in front of those guys? When we saw him on the Heat, he put in some decent play time. He had some good minutes, but I don't know if he's a fit for the timeline. But I do know culture-wise, he could be somebody who ends up providing this team with a really good spark, a very good veteran presence that maybe this team doesn't have right now. We just saw the Jamahl Mosley incident the other night, and we have a guy like Cole Anthony who's a big culture guy, but if you end up trading him or if you end up moving on from any of the other vets that we have on our roster like Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, maybe a guy like Victor Oladipo who has been with the Orlando Magic organization could be useful in that sense. I certainly don't think, as I list off his injuries, I don't want to, crap on his time when he was with the Heat and with some of the other teams, because obviously he was traded back to OKC, and then I believe the Grizzlies picked him up at one point, but he was waived. I don't want to crap on that time. He's probably not as great of a basketball fit just because who knows how much he can actually contribute or stay healthy. But I do think that there's something to be said for a locker room presence, not this year, but in the next summer and beyond that, where he could potentially bring some of the guys along. Maybe a Udonis Haslem type of role, but I don't really know if I see anywhere beyond that. But that's what's super intriguing with me. Now, I did also want to talk about some of the other players on this team. I mentioned some of the young guys, some of the other old guys, and I made a video on KCP if you guys want to check that out. I tried to go a little bit in depth for the time period that that video was made, which was just over a week ago, on what exactly the KCP signing has looked like this year. Well, just revisiting it, in summary, it's been pretty bad. It's been a complete failure, in my opinion, for this year. He's played some decent defense, but what we brought him in to do wasn't just to be on one side of the court, especially defense. So if we're looking to potentially move on from a guy like KCP, can you replace him with Victor Oladipo? With KCP's lack of production and maybe with Oladipo's cheapness, maybe you do think about doing something like that if you want to package KCP and try to get something during the draft time, or if you want to do something leading into training camp. That could potentially be an option, especially if you're trying to make way for some of the other guys in the depth chart and you just want to fill out the roster at the very end. You could potentially look for Victor Oladipo. Now, I will say I do think that we have guys on the roster to the point of we don't have to make a move like this, but I did just bring up some of the betting odds, which I thought was very interesting. And you have some pretty good teams here on this list. You have the Cavs, obviously we all know, top of the East, Knicks, and Celtics on this list. And I mean, I'm not going to forget about the Thunder, of course, but we're just looking at the Eastern Conference, some of our direct foes. And you got all playoff teams here, all playoff teams in the top 5 of this list. And they're looking at it, Vegas that is, saying, look, he could provide a winning basketball mindset and potentially some good minutes off the bench. Maybe we see a career revival of some sorts. And if it's going to happen, and if he's going to get an opportunity, it's going to be with one of these teams that are looking to make a playoff push. Now, all of these teams listed, except for the Orlando Magic, are they're well placed right now. For lack of a better term, in their own playoff standing. I think that they're very comfortable where they all are, and I don't think that they're thinking in any sort of way where we have to go out and make a move to be aggressive. So I think that does put the Orlando Magic in a little bit of a different place than them. But he fits in all of those situations. He would have to go to truly make an impact onto a team with playoff and championship aspirations because they're looking for that one extra piece to take a chance. Now, I don't think that this is something that's going to happen this season, obviously, but we're talking about further down the line. And I really think it's interesting from the Magic's perspective that they are not one of the teams that are happy where they're at right now on that list. And despite it not potentially impacting this season, it could be a reason for why they be aggressive in the summer and go try to get a guy like Victor Oladipo and say, hey, look, we know our cap space is a little messed up right now. We got 3 guys on practically max deals, and we want to go get a guy who's cheap, who's been here before, and could potentially fit what this roster needs, especially if they give up some of the older guys, some of the new signings, and they try to let some of the other guys learn as well and get more play time. I think it's really interesting just looking at that and what that could potentially bring. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Is Victor Oladipo somebody that you might want to target after this season when he is fully healthy? I think it's interesting. I'm not 100% bought into it, but I think that there's pros and there's not a ton of cons if he doesn't take the spot ahead of some of the other younger guys like Anthony Black or whoever else may be in the backcourt that we potentially bring in the draft or whatever. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below, and I will see you guys next time with more Orlando Magic basketball content.